Good morning, Turning Point. It's so great to be able to join with us again. And as you know, we've this year taken on the theme, do it all for the glory of God. And I want to continue that because, see, last week I spoke about some areas where God has called us to be part of His family. But what does that really mean? Well, in being part of His family, He has identified us to be part of the plan to bring a change to this world. And there's no question, as we look around, we hear the news each day, there are still some incredible things that are upsetting many. I know people are suffering in other countries, but today people are suffering in our own lands because we don't know what we can do to help. Well, let me start with one thing. The world has gone into a process of sin. Many ways, the world has said, what is wrong is right and what is right is wrong, and left this incredible confusion about who has the right for this or who has the right for that, or can people tell me what to do? Well, I just want to remind you that Jesus left heaven to come to give us hope. And then when He did that, He came and said, I want to make you into the disciples so that you may now continue the work to bring hope and life to this world. Remember those words I shared last week out of Matthew chapter 28. It says in verse 18, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me, to Jesus. Therefore, because God has got everything implanted into Jesus, therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. Surely, I'm with you always to the very end of the age. It starts with a declaration that God is there, God is powerful, God was never going to leave us, to give us a direction of what we're going to do, and concludes with that. And as I said, it's very easy for people to come to church and put their hand up and say, I'm a Christian, or they wear a little cross around their neck, or they do some other area. But the thing is, He's actually called us to be like disciples. Well, I don't know whether you ever thought about it like this. When a person starts off a career, saying building houses, first day they roll in and they're employed as an apprentice carpenter. Well, day one, would you just leave them to build the house fully? Or do they need training? Do they need development? Do they have to develop some skills? Well, I'm going to lay some foundations that I'm going to build upon how you and I should see that we are now in a training process. We're like an apprenticeship. Jesus did it with His 12 disciples. 3.5 years He ran the apprenticeship. As a result of that apprenticeship, they continued to change the world. Today, I want to book you into that same journey. But I just want to repeat some of these words here. It says, number one, growth is not automatic. Do you know what growth is? It is a choice. You know, you can be employed as a carpenter and then stay in bed all day. And I can tell you one thing, you will not grow as a carpenter staying in bed all day. It's a choice. Get out of bed. Do the thing that you've got there in front of you. Growth is not instant. Well, no carpenter can actually start building a house the first day they turn up. They've got to go through this process of learning, gradually understanding what comes first. Well, pretty logical. If you're going to build a house, you don't put the tiles on first. You actually start to level off the dirt. So you've got a foundation to build on. Gradually understanding what that process is. Growth doesn't happen just by attending church. We know those things. It's pretty logical. There are many people who attend church that are not really disciples of Jesus. In fact, Judas was one of those. He followed Jesus for the 3.5 years. But then, when it came to the crunch, where was he? You must develop godly habits. You must be at a place where it is just natural for you to do what God would want, not what people would say or people would want of you, but knowing godly habits. Growth doesn't just happen by yourself. Amazing thing, Jesus was the Son of God, but He never took on the mission of changing the world until He got others. We need to grow with others. Those of you who are married, You know what it's like. Suddenly, you're thrown into this incredible growth mode because people notice how you hang the toilet roll. They notice which end of the toothpaste you squeeze. They notice the way that you sit at the table. They notice the way you tidy the bench. They notice. Why? Because others reflect to us the things that we can't see about ourselves. Growth is not measured by what we believe. Both belief and behaviour must change. It's very easy to say, I believe that God can heal. Well, let's start to put in action. Let's start to show it by our habits, by our behaviour, by the things that we do. Belief should be a change in our life. And so today, I now want to take us on this journey to see what does it look like? How can we do that? The problem is that many people think that once you start attending a church, you've actually made it. Well, I want to take through 6 steps to help you on your journey, to identify what you can do about growing. And I'm just going to give some different terms to help you understand. The first one is the term community. Now, we all know what a community is. It's a bunch of people living in one area, but they are usually all different. That's good. Community, we talk about that as a church community because we help, we talk to them, we have this interaction. Some people come to a church because they want food support. Some people come because they're lonely. Some people come because they're a musician and they want somewhere to play. And some people come because, they just are lacking friends and they just need a friendship group. I know a friend of mine moved to a new area, wasn't a Christian. And they said, when we moved to the area, the first thing we did was look for a church. And I go, whoa, that's good. Yeah, thought that'd be the best place to meet some friends. No, hang on. You're going to get. Too often in the community, everyone's saying, care for us, look after us. We've heard it with natural disasters. Why didn't the government do more? Well, not quite sure the government made it rain or made a bushfire, or all I know is that sometimes in a community there is this demand. Sometimes that happens in the church. I want this. The sermon should be shorter. The heating should be turned up more. The coffee should be a different brand. We go through because community often says, look after me. But then there is a group that I call the crowd. Community is where we all just exist together. But then there's a crowd. Usually a crowd comes together because they're gathering for a purpose. They may attend a worship service. They may attend an activity or an event or a youth group or even a connect group. They attend something because they see this as of value and they want to be counted in the crowd. But they don't go any further because it's not about doing for the kingdom of God. It's still about just being identified. I am part of it. Some would go like, you'd often see protests happening and you'd interview people and say, why are you doing this? And some would have a very clear grasp, but others would say, I think it's a good idea, so I came for the walk. In church today, some are there for the walk. They're there just to be identified. Then I want to use this third one now, which is the third C. So community, where it's just a group of people hanging out. A crowd is a group got together for some reason, but not really sure why yet, but they like being in the crowd. But then there's the congregation. And many people refer to church gatherings as congregation. Well, a congregation is just a group of things and generally similar things. What's it say here? They turn up to most of the service. They think the church, well, it's good at doing a job like spreading the gospel. They love to watch. They love to hear the missions report, but they don't want to give any funds. They love to know of the new church plants, but they won't go along and help. The congregational one's still a gathering of the same. The interesting thing, like, I think of a congregation the way Jesus described it, it's like a flock of sheep. They're often put in a pen, sitting there waiting for their time to finish. That was never God's intention for his church. The church has been designed to be an incredible power, And we need to get past just a group of people, get past a crowd of people, get past a congregation of people that say that we're all the same. We've got a similar belief. We're running together. Well, no, we're not running. We're standing together. Because, see, we need to go on to become ones called committed. What's a committed person mean? Well, it means one who's actually committed themselves into the journey. At Turning Point, it's very simple. We've developed a thing called turning point principles. What's that talk about? The principles of Christian living, the principles of serving God, and the principles of how we can run together as a church. We come committed. The reason we do that, like anything, to do the course called Turning Point Principles takes 8 weeks, and that shows one thing. Are you committed? Some of you have heard me talk about this. There are people who say, well, I've been serving God for 50 years. Why do I need to go to Turning Point Principles? Because I want to see whether you're committed. I don't want to know whether you've been part of a community. I don't know whether you've stood up with the crowd. I don't even know whether you've been bundled into a congregation. I want to know whether you are committed. What did Jesus do when he called his disciples and said, come, follow me? Where? They had no idea. But they were called and they responded and they committed for the journey. Can you see the process? The disciples of Jesus were just part of the Jewish community. They were called out to become part of the crowd to say, I want to identify this guy. Then they were identified by being called the disciples, the congregation. But then they became committed because they travelled from town to town. They lived on donations. They just were there. Then they were sent out to pray for people. They took on the responsibility of being committed. Committed person within Turning Point. What does it look like? Well, first they would have done Turning Point principles, as I've said. And if you don't know what that means, if you're watching this and you're not sure what Turning Point Church is about, jump on our website, send us a note and say, get in contact. We've got churches all over southeast Melbourne. And in that, we want you to become part of God's church. If you're not in our area, we'll help you find another church because we need to be part of it. But Turning Point, well, logically, you need to be in service. No one can class themselves a part of the family if they never turn up. You can't class yourself a part of the church if you're not there. Done Turning Point principles, turning up to church on a Sunday, and part of a connect group. Why? Well, the church is a celebration time, and we don't get close to relationship. Jesus did it well. He had crowds of 5,000. Well, our church hasn't quite got there yet, but then he'd spend the time with his 12. We need those connect groups. Let's move on to the next. So we come from the community, the gathering of people who would just be in an area, to the crowd that says, well, I stand for this, and I'm sort of going with it. Then the congregation says, well, we are coming and looking the same. We are getting ready for what it is because we are all part of. But then we become the committed. We're no longer just turning up, but now we're saying, I'm ready to start serving. I'm into the system. I'm into the programs. I'm into what God's got, and I'm going to become one who will be a leader in it. But then we come to the core. The core is somewhere where people themselves start to feed others. The core now are not the ones who would be coming to a food support program, but they'll be the ones running a food support program to give out to others. They're involved in some area of service within the church. Yes, they may see that it's a need in the church for a new guitar player. Well, get out the guitar and learn how to play. A singer. Oh, we need some more connect group leaders. Well, I'm going to study the Bible. I'm going to go to the Bible school. I'm going to do whatever. Oh, there's mission opportunity. There's a church plan. Here, suddenly the core rise up and say, don't talk about it. I want to do it. I'm ready to do it. I'm part of the worship team. I'm leading a small group. I'm thinking about how I can get trained for the next thing. I am part of the core that God has got planned. I've now moved past that. Now I'm no longer a receiver, but I'm a giver. Too often what we have in our Western society, we talk about the consumer mentality. You know, is the product on the shelf good enough? Is it near its use by date? Is it going to meet my needs? Sometimes we come into the church and we do that. Oh, is the preacher near his used by the date? Oh, Is it going to meet my needs? Do they have a good children's ministry? Do they have a good food support program? Do they? We've got to get past that. We become the core and say, hang on a minute, maybe the preacher's getting to his use by date. Maybe I better get ready to be the next one. Oh, maybe I better get to help with the food support program. Maybe I better arrange some of my work to get into different types of shifts so I can be available to help with working bees or planning church outreaches or church plants or going on a missions trip. Or we need to see that we can do, that we are now the core, not thinking about what is the church doing for me, but what am I now as the church doing for the community. But I want to go to this last one here. As I go through, we need to realise that we're part of the commission. What is the commission? The commission is the thing that we started with. God has come and given us commission to go into all the world and preach the gospel. A person who understands the commission, they understand God's calling is on them. Now, not to say that I am pastor or I am apostle or I am elder or I am... Title is irrelevant. What is relevant is understanding God's call is on us. I want to reflect on these as we go through this journey. Because too often people see that they need to be part of a community. I hear people say, I'm looking for a good church community. That tells me you're looking for somewhere where you can just sit and take. You know, some like to be cast as part of the crowd. We're going to have a prayer meeting because I like prayer. We're going to have a whatever because I like to be part of the crowd. Oh. I want to be identified as a congregation because in this congregation I feel safe because I know everyone and we're all comfortable together. But this is where we start to come into reality. This is where we start to say, I'm now committed and I'm for the journey. And whatever it takes, whether it's training, whatever it is, I'm ready to go through this training. And then I become the core so that I now am part of the leadership, not because of pride, but because I am giving of myself. And I'm there, not just attending a connect group, but I'm leading a connect group. I'm supporting, I'm doing the outreach, I'm doing the flyer delivery, I'm doing whatever it takes. I'm cleaning the floors, I'm cleaning the toilets, I'm sweeping the path. But then, understanding the commission. The commission is simple, to go to all the world. I am so thankful that somebody took the time to talk to me about Jesus. They took the commission serious and they shared what Jesus can do. Today there are hundreds, thousands of people needing to know what they are commissioned to do, and there are thousands of people today needing to hear those who are commissioned. Today the world is crying out for true Christians to rise up. I still remember a great singer, songwriter from when I first got saved. This guy, he went around and he tried out every religious process. He went to multi countries to test out every different religion until one day he thought, well, I've tried Hinduism, Buddhism, I've tried Islam, I've tried all these things. And then he said, maybe I should go back and try this Western one. What was it called? Oh, Christianity. And then he said, the most amazing thing was, in my journey, I never found somebody who shared the truth of Jesus. Today, we have many, many people going through different areas of life. And many of them are hanging out to find real Christians. What are they? Once they identify their commission and they're taking the gospel out. Someone did it for me. Can you be the person who can take it out to the next? Because the question is for us, where do we stand in this little growth? Are we still the community, looking just to be part of and be fed by everyone, make sure they've got a good children's program? Are we part of the crowd where we start to identify the congregation, where we're starting to look the same as each other, where we're part of be committed, that we've actually said, I'm going to go in, I'm going to take up church membership, I'm going to become committed, I'm going to then move on to be the core, and I'm going to now start to move into areas of leadership and responsibility and accountability, and then I'm going to take on the commission and go out. Today, I challenge you, as you listen to this message, where are you? Have you seen that God has got an incredible call in your life? If you have identified, drop me a line. I'd love to get in contact with you, because I know there's one thing. If God is for you, who can be against you? Lord bless you. I look forward to seeing you in one of our Turning Point churches very soon.